A journey of adventures begins with the glimpse of a city. City with sky-touching buildings but seems like a place full of gloominess. We notice his deep silence and fear trapped between those buildings in just a single image. Another scene shows a bell ringing sound ding-dong and a notification of appearing levels. As we were trying to understand about levels, a horrific scene arrived with monsters everywhere. Every monster is more hideous than the previous one. They are monstrous beasts with levels mentioned on them. We see people are also mentioned with their level numbers, and those who have low levels are at a high risk of being attacked by monsters. This is a world revolving around levels. The higher the level, the better will be the life of person. Suddenly a terrific beast appears on screen with small red eyes and giant jaws with sharp teeth, but the most weird thing is that the monster is without any level. His level is just a question mark, so no one knows his ability. A young muscular man stands in front of the beast as he wants a fight with him. A signboard shows his level number 457. He seems to be a bit confused about how to defeat this monster. His team asks him that they should leave now, but he refuses. He says that if this monster gets out in the city, everything will be destroyed. He asks his team members to return back through escape portal. When everyone leaves, he attacks the beast with his sword using all his energy, but the results were unexpected. The beast crashes him onto the ground, leaving him broken and injured. Some signs appears about his stats, which shows that his all energy has been lost and his remaining health is only 5%. He sees the horrific face of question mark beast and thinks that he is going to die. But before he dies, we see a strong man covered in all black appears suddenly and prevents the dying boy. The boy looks at him from behind that he only has a thin golden sword in his hand. He raises his sword against the beast and we see his smiling face. He is a young confident boy who calls the beast BL. He asks him why is he hiding in such a pathetic dungeon. When Beast hears that, he becomes out of control and attacks the young man. The boy who was near to die shouts at him to be careful, but it seems like that it was a piece of bread for the young man to kill this huge monster with just a little sword. The boy who is lying on the ground remains shocked due to his supreme power. He asks with a big open mouth that who is he and what level he is. The boy with black hair turns to him, smiles and says that he is level 1. Another scene begins and we see our hero reading an article about how to be a successful hunter. The article shows that if someone does efforts and performs well, he will definitely become a successful hunter. But if someone fails in it, it's not his faith or society which cause him harm, but it's his laziness and low efforts which are responsible for his failure. Our hero level 1 throws his phone onto the ground. There we see an innocent boy who seems to be his partner and a decaying body of a monster behind him. Level 1 slowly starts to speak about himself. He told the boy that it was a whopping time of 7 years in which he struggled to become a hunter, but he failed every time and reasons were different every time. He sits down with the wall and keeps telling his story that the hunter exam involves tasks such as hunting assigned monsters in vast dungeons. But in the early stages with the low levels, it is impossible to defeat the assigned monsters for exam task. Those who had good equipments easily passed the exams. He worked part-time to avail good equipments, but due to continue working, his stamina hit rock bottom and he collapsed during exams. Level 1 grabs his phone and says in deep disappointing tone that it is not effort or reality. He wants to give a piece of brain to the person who wrote it. As he is continuously talking about past, a hunter supervisor appears and asks did he kill all low-level monsters on his end. He replies that yes, he had killed them. Hunter supervisor, who is a muscular and heavy man, asks him that he should now join the boss raid. Level 1 grinds his teeth and thinks that for boss raids they always select people with lots of money and rich background, and he considers the hunter supervisor was trying to deceive him with a lie. But he says that he will be there on time. All of a sudden a blue portal appears there and few members arrive from it. Level 1 thinks that first members were more than this, so what is going around here? He was in deep thoughts when his high school classmate Kim Min-seok finds him. He calls level 1 by his name Lee Jin-woo. They both meet happily and Lee asks himself why he often calls him future high ranker, as he doesn't have such intentions. Kim informs him that he hears a news about emergency convocation order for guilds, and that why today the boss raid is going to happen with remaining guild members and 2 interns, which means Lee can beat his boss today. They both chuckles and dance. In the coming scenes we see the basic rules of boss raid. A golden-haired boy comes to meet Lee. His name is Choi Young, a rich boy who is in team because of his money, but he seems to be a good boy. Hunter supervisor trains them for boss raid and tell them few more rules to be successful and collect more points. He tells them he should kill every mob that comes in their way, and if the damage is insufficient they should escape through portals. Choi asks Lee and Kim to stay together for better results. They shake their hand and enter into the portal. There we see a monster Circlemus with 30% strength remaining. It's a boss, and over 50 minor mobs were also attacking them. Supervisor shouts for help to kill Circlemus as they have very short time left, but skeleton from all over attacking them. Kim and Choi says to Lee that he should go and help Supervisor, they will handle the skeletons. Lee and few others try hard to kill Circlemus, but it was to defeat it as the remaining time in its self-destruction was near to end. The situation becomes out of control, so the Supervisor announces to leave. As they rush towards the escape portal and skeleton attacks Choi, and he gets injured. Lee saves him, but now they need to hurry as only 9 seconds are left. Before they enter into the escape portal, a huge number of skeletons attacks them again. Lee fights them bravely and everyone runs to enter the escape portal, but at that point we see a betrayal from Choi. He kicks Lee to throw him back towards Skeleton, and then time ends. Circlemus explodes with a great sound and we see darkness on everything. In the deep darkness, a child appears with his dad and says that today he will become a hunter. Her mom asks about his dreams, and to which he replies that he wants to earn tons of money. Scene disappears and we see Lee lying on the floor. Escape portals was disappeared. Kim and Choi asks to Lee that he is okay or not, but Lee gets angry and asks Choi why he pushed him away. Suddenly Supervisor notices that the dungeon is about to collapse. He orders everyone to leave as they couldn't lift heavy rocks onto the Lee. Supervisor says them to leave him behind as a dungeon is a hunter's graveyard. Everyone leaves with heavy heart, leaving behind Lee shouting for help, but he says that he will be there on time. In a new scene we see Lee buried under the rubble helplessly. He tries to figure out his mistake, but he couldn't find any. He doesn't want to die, so he opens his stats window and see his health points, which was only 5. He thinks that he really needs to get out of here. He turns on his mobile's flashlight and notices an opening from which the wind was blowing. He realizes that there must be some passage near. He struggles hard to get out of the rubble and somehow he succeeds. When he comes out from the rubble, he sees there a strange passage with a portal at its end. Lee becomes amazed to realize that there is a portal in dungeon that can take him to somewhere else. Before he could enter, a notification appears that it's an SS dungeon portal. What he really likes to enter is the SS rank of dungeon is the hardest one. Even heroes and hunters avoid them. Lee doesn't want to enter it, but collapsing dungeon and falling heavy blocks force him to enter in the portal. When he exits on the other side of portal, we see a graveyard and a man's shadow sitting far from Lee. Lee observes everything and finds a blue level board which shows that it's a prison. That person is a non-player character who is just like a screen. But soon Lee realizes that he is just acting like an NPC. He asks Lee how could he entered into the SS portal with 46 level. Lee replies that it all happened without his choice. Lee asks him who is he. The man smiles and says that he is manager of game. He is just like an NPC. He tells Lee that only way to get of here is to clear the dungeon by himself. The only thing matters here is luck, not health and levels. Lee gets shocked about this strange dungeon. The manager encourages him by saying that he is already somewhat lucky, and if he struggles hard he will be able to find hidden peace. Then he smiles and flies away, leaving Lee shocked behind him. Suddenly a blue notification appears with a quest to find a weapon and a tip to be aware of rain. Lee looks up in the sky with confusion and finds his answers. The sky starts raining weapons and heavy stuff. Lee somehow manages to survive this attack, but things not stop there. Lee takes a deep breath as the sky was emitting something on him once again. When come closer, we see a huge bull with red eye falling right on helpless Lee. Lee quickly changes his place to avoid being crushed under the giant bull. The bull falls on ground and gets fainted. A notification shows his level is a question mark, which means its level must be above 100. Lee remembers the manager saying about passing this dungeon. He realizes that first he have to find a weapon and then to kill the bull. He smiles to see lots of weapons around him which were fallen down from the sky. It seems very easy to kill the fainted bull. Lee picks up a shiny sword. Its stats appears showing that it's a great sword with attacking ability of 1050. Lee attacks the bull with all his power. He was confirmed that the bull will die, but unfortunately the bull receives no damage. Lee need to finish the game before the bull wakes up, so he grabs another weapon. This time he selects Barbarian Warrior Battle X with special skill of reinforcement. Lee attacks the bull with blade, but bull receives no damage. This time difficulty rises for Lee as bull opens its eyes. It attacks back Lee with anger. At that moment Lee hears a sound from sky. He hears the manager laugh, who was asking him to finish the game. Lee looks back towards all weapons and thinks that he have to pick one real weapon among all these, but how does he know which weapon is real? As the bull starts running to attack Lee, he throws one after another weapon towards the bull, but no one causes harm to bull. Lee slams himself for not being a hunter every time. The red giant bull prepares himself once again to attack Lee, and this time Lee rushes towards a new weapon, a king's shield. He uses that to protect himself from bull's attack. But in coming scenes we see him brutally injured and losing all his powers. His HP becomes 0 and he turns into a normal person. Lee opens his eyes hardly and see the bull is coming towards him once again. Lee thinks that he is near to die, but he couldn't give up because he have to finish it by himself. He tries to stand up and grabs another weapon. It's a heroic sword which shoots out condensed air. He quickly shoots the gun towards the giant bull. A powerful blow of air bursts out from the gun and it gives a backward shock to Lee. The bull seems to be again undamaged, but Lee is not okay this time. We see him fallen on the ground under the tree. His body looks completely crashed as he has lost his all powers. Suddenly he sees a shiny dagger on the tree. Finally he finds a real weapon. He tries to stand up with broken body and grab that golden dagger. All of a sudden he feels an energetic field emerging around him. A notification appears that he had done the quest to find real weapon. Now he have to kill the bull. Lee smiles and realizes that the dagger has some special skill which is unidentified. He sees bull rushing towards him. Once again Lee holds his dagger like a real hunter and stabs the dagger through the bull's skull with all his powers. We see a golden explosion all over there. A new scene appears with more suspense when we see Lee on hospital bed. He slightly opens his eyes to see where is he and is he dead or alive. A notification appears that he had finished his quest and now he have leveling up himself to 10. He was trying to understand while his sister enter into the room. When she finds him awakened she calls their mom and dad. His mom and dad get angry at him that why he chose to stay in terrible situation rather not to leave. Lee confesses that he made mistake to trust Choik who pushed him into the dungeon. He remembers the moment when Chouk kicks him, but he shakes his head and says in fresh voice that he will move on and going to take care of himself. His family gives a weird expression as they are hiding something. When his sister shows her affection towards Lee and asks him not to be worried by seeing this, Lee's level notification appears with level 1. Finally Lee gets to know that he has lost all his levels. At night Lee is quietly sitting on his bed thinking about his dreams. He is sick of poverty and wants to spend a normal life with lots of money, but now his 7 years struggles are lost. He remembers that people found him unconscious near a D-grade dungeon. He was completely in an unexplainable situation. He decides to get back to the SS rank dungeon again to know what had happened to him. He feels ashamed that he entered in a SS class dungeon and retrieved back without obtaining anything. Even he lost all his previous strength and levels. Lee gets irritated by a mosquito so he smashes it and suddenly a notification window appears that he has leveled up. But the notification on his room door still showing him level 1. He asks his sister about his dagger. She tells him the location of his dagger which was investigated by a government officer. He runs immediately to collect that dagger because he realizes that his dagger is a hidden piece from SS dungeon as mentioned by the manager. When he opens the door he strikes with someone. He was Choik who betrayed him and now he is smiling wickedly at Lee. Choi enters into the room and Lee gets to know that he is the one who pays his hospital bills. Lee's mother asks Lee to be humble with Choik. Lee asks his sister to take his mom-dad to the cafe for a while so he can talk with Choik. When everyone leaves Lee asks angrily Choik that why he did this to him. Choi chuckles and says that it was his test that day and being successful in test is a matter of death and life for him. That's why he betrayed Lee. Lee feels deep grief to know that just for a test he sent him to die. Choik warns him in cold way that if he go for any legal action he will suffer a lot because he is poor, and Choik is rich so one is going to support Lee. Lee says that he refuses his all warnings to which Choik smiles and says that he should avoid conflicts because his sister's beauty can't be ignored. Now this time Lee could not control himself and attacks Choik, but before he could do anything someone grabs him from behind. He is Kim, his classmate. He cries to see Lee alive. While seeing Kim with Lee, Choik leaves the room. Kim brings Lee's dagger with him too. Lee quickly snatches his dagger so Kim asks what's special in this regular dagger. At night Lee is looking at his dagger. He asks it to identify Lee. A notification window appears with strange information that this dagger is a soul contract weapon and is only beneficial for the person who uses it to fill the quest. That means it was a holy dagger and no one else could see its qualities except Lee. Lee becomes excited to know that the level experience required to be leveled up with dagger is level 1, which means that now Lee can level up with every monster he kill. He decides to go to the dungeons with this dagger so he could pass B-class, even C-class dungeons. But first he needs to finish the tutorial phase so he kill 9 more mosquitoes. Then notification window asks him to confirm his reward. A wooden box fallen from the roof in Lee's room. It looks like a treasure box. Lee opens it with excitement, but he found a sleeveless old t-shirt which have holes in it. Lee throws the shirt in anger, but at that moment 2 people opens the door. They are from Hunter Management Agency. Lee gets inspired by Leader's handsome looks. Leader asks Lee that if he leveled up last night. Lee says that yes, he leveled up, but now he leveled down again. Leader asks his deputy to check Lee with his portable stats checking device. The device shows previous results with level 1. Lee takes a sigh of relief because as long as he doesn't increase his stats, he won't get caught by Hunter's Management Agency. Leader asks him to show Lee's notification window as he wants to confirm his levels. Lee happily opens his window, which shows his level 10 and a message to wear the whole-ridden shirt of Night Walker. He picks up that shirt and says to Leader that he should reuse and recycle this old shirt. Leader looks suspicious. He asks Lee that if he acquires any special ability or skill, he should inform the agency immediately, and if he caught using his powers secretly, he will punished under law. When they leave, Lee decides to hide the hidden piece until end. He wears whole-ridden shirt and a window appears informing him that now he will receive an upgrade stone. In the next scene, he finds a green sparkling stone. When he picks it up, it suddenly produces green waves, which turns the torn shirt into a new one. A message window appears with stats showing that when he wears this shirt, he becomes invisible. Lee confirms it by standing in front of a mirror. His reflection doesn't appear in mirror. He feels like he had hit a jackpot, but stealth ability vanishes soon and he becomes visible again. In the coming few scenes, we see a person covered in black walks in front of the hospital. His face is also hidden behind the mask. The masked man is Lee, who is now on his way to accomplish his next quest. To kill 5 monsters, not just monsters. He needs to enter into a dungeon, but guards of Hunter Agency are thoroughly monitoring the gates. Lee thinks for a while and activates its stealth ability. He easily passes through the gate while becoming invisible. Inside the Hunter Management Society, there are a lot of people walking in rows. A notification appears onto the message window that Lee has used 50% of his HP, and the stealth will be deactivated in 40 seconds. Lee thinks that he needs to enter into any dungeon. He sees a notification from Society who calls for support at B-Class Dungeon. Lee rushes towards the B-Class Dungeon, but suddenly a green monster stops him. This monster detects his stealth because of its low HP. Lee thinks that he won't get any harm, but monster attacks Lee, causing health and whole loss. His stealth becomes deactivated. Lee becomes angry and equipped himself with dagger, his soul-bounded weapon. The monster once again attacks him, but this time Lee doesn't feel any harm. It seems like invisible iron plates have wrapped around him. Lee kills that monster with a single attack using his dagger. Windows shows his HP and levels increases, restoring the health and other skills of Lee. The whole body of monster melts down in a second with incredible power of dagger. Lee looks proudly at his dagger, and at that moment some hunters arrive by hearing loud noise. Lee decides to hide himself as he doesn't afford to be discovered at this point. Everyone will become conscious if they get to know a level 1 killed the B-grade monster. But before he escapes, another lizard monster attacks him. Lee forcefully attacks the monster back and it kills Lizard in instance. People surprised to see a level 1 hunter doing such action. When Lee observes that he is being noticed, he runs away. Someone shouts at his back, "Catch that guy, he is running." Lee keeps running and those people starts to follow him. Suddenly, of nowhere, Lizard Warrior starts to popping out. 2 of 3 try to kill lizard monsters, but they were too strong. Third one, who is their captain, asks them to keep fighting as he needs to catch the level 1. As Lee was trying hard to escape, he finds that 3 hunters arrive in his way. The captain hunter behind him shouts at them to catch Lee. Lee uses his stealth power to pass through them and escapes as he finds no other way. Everyone remains shocked to see that how could a level 1 has such skills. One says that he must have some mythical grade or a legendary item. Greed for that item appears on their faces, and when they hear Lee's footsteps, they rush after him to kill. At that moment, Lee's stealth deactivated and he becomes visible. Lee found no other way to use his additional skills to increase speed. Suddenly, he finds a sinkhole portal to a dungeon. Without wasting a single minute, he jumps into it. His followers reach to the edge of portal and discuss to jump or not. One man stops them to enter because it was a C-grade dungeon. He says that they should wait for him to die, then they will collect the items. Scene changes and we see Lee landing on the floor of dungeon. He thinks that this dungeon is quiet and peaceful as there are no monsters. Suddenly, a message window appears that his mission will be start in 10 minutes and he should be ready for the battle. He has only 10 minutes to win the battle according to window. As Lee was waiting for the monsters, a slime ball which level 90 falls from upside, and after that we see slime balls falling into the dungeon one after another. Lee looks at falling slime balls and realizes that a single annihilation strike will not be enough for all of them. Situation gets more terrible when a slime attacks Lee and he lost his 10% health. Lee gets angry and he cuts the slime in two with his dagger. He thinks that now he will recover, but he gets shocked to see that both parts of slime turns into baby slime, like they divide their cells to form new organism. Whenever Lee cuts a slime, it turns into new ones, causing more harm to Lee. Lee gets exhausted to fight these slimes. Soon he lost his 95% health. He tries his best to kill at least one slime, but he fails. Another slime attacks him and he lost all his health. While on the other hand, people are still waiting outside to snatch items when Lee dies and the dungeon portal breaks. They observe that it's been 5 minutes and Lee must have died inside the dungeon. Scene changes and we see an unexpected thing. Lee uses special strikes against slimes to kill them and he becomes successful. Soon he kills all slimes. His levels increase to 300 and his health and mana restores. But the game is not over yet. Window shows that boss monster is going to appear in 15 seconds. This time Lee is confident as he has annihilation strike power and some other cheat items, so he shouldn't be worried about boss monster. He thinks that what kind of a monster will appear this time. And when he sees the monster, he shivers down to his spine because this time he is going to fight a flying wyvern. On the other hand, hunters are still waiting for Lee outside the dungeon. One hunter asks them to stop waiting for him as it was already been over 30 minutes. The hunter with red hair has more eager to snatch items from Lee, so he asks everyone other to leave. One hunter asks him to compensate their losses as they were helping him to catch Lee. They both started a conflict, due to which hunter management agency cops arrive. They ask to them, is there anyone went into the dungeon? He is the same guy who visited Lee in his hospital room. This scene ends here, and in the coming scene we see Lee and wyvern monster facing each other. The wyvern exhales a blue fire on Lee and flies away. Lee looks safe, but he was tired of waiting for wyvern to come down, as the wyvern keeps flying up in the air. When observing this, Lee decides to grab weapons that are scattered everywhere in dungeon. He selects a pair and throws it to the wyvern. It misses the target and it makes wyvern even more angrier. He blows fire on Lee. Lee thinks he needs more strength to hit the wyvern, so he changes his stats on window and attacks the wyvern with more power. This time he succeeds and the pair hits the wyvern. Lee starts to throw one after another weapon towards wyvern, causing damages to its health. After so many attacks, the wyvern still have 29% health left as its pool was annoyingly huge. It attacks back Lee, as a result of which Lee gets severe burn and lost almost 50% of his health. Lee gets tired of fighting, so he decides to finish it quickly. He changes his attacking pattern and gives a powerful strike to the wyvern. At the same moment, wyvern throws one more fire breath at Lee. Lee's weapon tears the fire cloud and hits the wyvern hardly, and then a notification shows that the one-eyes wyvern is destroyed. All the health and mana of Lee gets restored and his levels rise up. In a new scene we see both hunter management agency cops are entering into the blue sparkling portal of C-rank dungeon where Lee entered. They both fell into the deep hollow dungeon. When they rise up, the team leader observes whole dungeon and says that this is the place where level 1 entered according to the hunters. Junior 1 asks to his team leader that he thinks that they are wasting their time. Team leader gives him a serious look and keeps observing the dungeon. There were a green sparkling sphere-like portal and some unique items scattered all around. He says that this dungeon is a C-rank dungeon and this is not possible for level 1 to clear it alone. He has definitely died somewhere in this dungeon. He further says to Junior that at first when he visits him in hospital there were no signs of any awakened spirit were shown in his body. Suddenly a thought comes in his mind and he says that yes, it is possible if Lee has won that person's item. Junior couldn't understand, so he asks that what does he mean by that person. Team leader informs him they had have orders of reporting immediately if they found him. He orders Junior to check all dungeon and CCTV footages around the location of Gangnam Station, as they need to look more thoroughly into this case. His Junior seems to be unhappy with another night of overtime and hard work, but team leader is in mood to investigate the case as soon as possible. While team leader exits, he says that whoever he is, he will catch him. When the left we see Lee hiding behind his stealth. At that night we see a beautiful view of a house in which Lee is entering. It's his house. When he enters, his family looks at him in tension. They all are sitting in living room as Lee's sister Sorae asks him that what is the problem with him. He ran out of hospital without saying anything, and at this he enters into home like this. Lee replies that nothing, but he has to use the computer right now. His father says that Lee must be having a hard time. Lee ignores them all and shuts his room door. He turns on his computer and finds that Hunter Management Agency is tracking him. He searches for Hunter Exception Law when he notices that Son-1 is behind him. It was his sister. She brings her sandwiches and milk. Lee tries to overcome and says that he was just checking about claiming something. His sister directly asks him that did he enter in a dungeon or commit a crime. as she was calling him, but his number was out of reach. Lee spills out the milk and says that how could a level 1 enter into a dungeon, and he must go to the market to replace his phone as it's all broken. His sister pats his shoulder and say that he should not put himself into hard work. If he couldn't be a hunter, he must be good at something else. When she leaves, Lee releases a sigh. He thinks that he needs to be more careful in future. He selects his reward for defeating Wyvern. It's a beautiful necklace with regression skills. He starts thinking to sell the necklace when he receives a call from Kim, his friend. He asks Lee for a hangout as he passes the exam and leveled up. Lee congrats him, but when Kim make apologies for running with Choik, Lee gets stunned. Kim informs him that Choik is a party leader now and his last test is happening soon, in which Lee is also participating. Lee smiles as he finds a new idea. In a next scene, we see Choik is getting ready with his team for exam. He asks everyone to make sure safety first. At some distance, we see Lee wearing his black costume and mask. This video ends here with an exciting twist, but if you want to know more about this series, you must subscribe to our channel.